up to California. From Mexico you come to the Sacramento Valley to toil in the sun. Your wife and 7 children, they're working everyone. And what will you be giving to your brown-eyed children of the sun?
He was 17 years old, and we asked him to which country he best identified with. He said there was very little that he had in common with America, and he wasn't accepted by Mexico, a person with no country, a Chicano. Bienvenidos, my name is Bob Acosta, and we welcome you to part 3 of our specials, exploring the world of the Chicano in Orange County. Program 3 delves into political representation, and it is titled Aztlán, Nationalism, Pluralism, or Assimilation. Consider the Chicano situation. With the Anglo-American, he shares the land he stands on and the laws that govern his life. With the Mexicano from Mexico, he shares the language, culture, and history of his forefathers. He doesn't fit into the so-called anglicized American way of life, nor to Mexico's definitions of the true Mexicano, and they label him Pocho. It can best be explained by Enrique Hank Lopez, lawyer and author, who wrote, "I have never felt completely American, and when I'm in Mexico, I sometimes feel like a displaced gringo with a curiously Mexican name." Well said, and that is the limbo state of the Chicano.
Political powerlessness in the barrios is in a very sad state of affairs because historically speaking, when Chicanos were colonized, when the Anglo first came to these lands and the war with Mexico took place, there's been very, very little progress made in terms of political representation.
In the United States, we had a situation with the Mexican-American relating back to 50, 60, 70 years in which political activity was not one of our fortes. It was not encouraged. Basically, many of our parents were not American citizens, therefore they were not eligible to vote. This type of feeling prevailed in the community, in the home. And it has been overcome to a degree, but one thing that we lack, that the Anglo has, and I respect the Anglo for it very much, is the discipline that is required to be able to vote people into office. We do not have that discipline. And we have not seen a Mexican-American except in 100% or close to 100% population within the area where he's going to be running for office, that's been elected to office.
If you look at Orange County, there's two key areas, Santana, and you have the North Orange County area, La Habra, Anaheim, Fullerton. These are key areas as far as Chicano political representation.
Thanks to the reality of protests of the 60s, we do have now 5 state assemblymen in Sacramento. Nevertheless, however, there is, in proportionate terms, in terms of the barrio, in terms of Chicano communities, we still lack representation that means something.
If we get a Chicano in Fullerton to win a major election, whether it's in Congress, whether it's in City Council, or even State Assembly, it can show people that we've got the force here in Orange County.
Well, as far as politics is concerned, the only problem in Santa Ana alone, I can't speak for Orange County, but I guess in general I should speak for Orange County as far as the Mexican-American community is concerned. Politically, we are not represented as a whole, so consequently, we don't feel we have adequate representation countywide. Yes, to sum it up, I think that politically, we have got to have a base because politics creates an economic base, job base, anything that has to do with economics is important to us because you have got to open the door first. Once you open the door in the political arena, naturally, all doors open to you, whether they be in the business world, in the world of employment, in the world of housing. But basically, you have got to open that initial door, and to me, that initial door is a political door.
I feel sorry for politicians sometimes because they really got it bad, you know. If they really try to do something which would be radical to other politicians and help his people, they would say, well, you're just trying to get down to their level, you know. Now, if he tries to stick with them, well, they figure, well, it don't matter, you know, we can still get him on our side. He likes to be on our side, you know. So I kind of feel sorry for Chicano politicians, you know.
The political arena is far from balanced when we consider political representation for over 3 million Chicanos in California. In fact, statistics show a decrease among Chicanos in political office. And with the aid of our next guest, we will attempt to reveal the political puzzle confronting the Chicano people. My guest is Joaquin Sanchez, Associate Director of the Counseling Center and Director of Special Services at the University of California, Irvine. Bienvenido, Joaquin.
Gracias.
Joaquin, why do you feel that political representation is such an important factor in the future of all the Chicano people?
Well, I think it's important because unless you have someone who has any power, significant power, and who identifies with you, that not too much is going to happen to the Chicanos. I think for a long time we've had people who had the political power, but really do not identify or understand the Chicano. So I think that we need someone who is in that position, who does understand us, and who can bring about legislation or some changes that we really need right now.
Okay, so you explained that there is a definite need having representatives for all the Chicano people, which leads me to the next question dealing with the allegiance of the Chicano. And it is a question not only among Anglo people, even into the Mexicano. Does the Chicano, where does his allegiance lie? To Mexico, to America? Is he lost, or?
Yeah, I guess I've been told that Mexico is like a Xerox copy of the United States. When you go down there, people expect something different, but in fact, there's a lot more disparity between the classes. And I know myself, as I've gone down there, other people have not really been able to be accepted. They really identify, and it's beautiful, but you're not accepted. They know you're from the United States, you know, so it's very hard. And then when you're in the United States, the history has been that you never really have been a part of it. And so it is a very hard thing it's a very hard thing to feel that you cannot go back home to Mexico and you really don't belong in the United States for the most part today.
Do you think this is probably one of the things leading why the Chicanos reject the American melting pot theory? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Oh yeah, I think the melting pot theory is over because, not so much because Chicanos are deliberately choosing not to go into the melting pot, but first of all because they never were accepted. As, you know, a lot of Chicanos tried to be the American, but they were told no. But I think it's even more than that. I think it's a historical period right now that the United States has to realize altogether that the world's shrinking very fast, that the world for the most part is composed of people that are not white, and that people are beginning to feel very good about their culture, that you don't have to change, that you don't have to become gray in order to be accepted. And so I think that the melting pot theory is out, and I think it should not only be for Chicanos, but for...
In actuality, there's no real people that are possibly more diverse than the Mexican people, than Chicanos. We are, in actuality, the birth of a melting of the Indian woman and the Spaniard conqueror. And so that, in a sense, we can't reject the term melting pot, but in educational circles, we reject it in that there's an intolerance of ethnic differences and an understanding that there are special educational needs for peoples of different historical processes and different cultures. And so the term melting pot is rejected in that sense, that doesn't fulfill our needs in education.
Let's take a moment and elaborate a little bit on Aztlán. You know, we hear so much about Aztlán incorporating more than just the Chicano people. Could you give us a little bit of history on how Aztlán formulated and came about and what its meaning is today?
Well, you know that the Aztecs originally started from somewhere around here and migrated down to Mexico, into Mexico City. And Aztlán, to me, simply means north of Mexico. I think that's the correct interpretation. But I think that what people mean is that this has been Mexico before, and there's a lot of things that we have here that we want to identify with. And by repeating the term Aztlán, it reminds us that this is where we were once in control, but now we seem to be an occupied people. And so when I think and I hear people saying Aztlán, they mean this was ours, and it still is ours in many ways.
Do you feel that there is a proudness or a brotherhood when we refer to the term Aztlán among people of Latin origin or Hispanic origin?
Yeah, I think it gives you a really good sense of identity. In other words, by using that term, it says you are in a state that is yours. And so, although California, is a very good Spanish term, Aztlán says it even more strongly, is that there is a culture that exists here that has been here for a long time.
Well then, a great concern is one thing that seems to contradict it. There's a definite gap between Mexicanos and Chicanos, and I think it's something that you referred to earlier, which is obvious, and it seems to contradict the firmness and the strongness or the brotherhood of terms like La Raza or Aztlán. How do you answer that? We just mentioned a moment ago about Aztlán, this brotherhood thing, and then suddenly there's a definite gap.
All right, yeah, because I think the term Chicano is a very powerful one that belongs to younger people who are more militant. And I think it's a reflection of starting to feel a sense of power. And I don't think people move until they feel a sense of power. Like, for example, whenever you've seen riots or blowouts, it's not been the person who feels no sense of power at all, but it's been college professors and people who feel a sense of being able to win something. And so the term Chicano is a much more aggressive term, and we've been prepared for it. Unfortunately, it alienates a lot of people who are Mexicanos Americanos, Mexican Americans, because it's never been their chance to experience the chance of winning like we can now.
We seem to be in a limbo state, being Chicano, like you've mentioned earlier, where we can't really claim everything that's totally Mexico or Mexicano, and then we're faced here with the so-called American dream. And it seems to be a big gap of the Anglo people. I had mentioned to you before, and when we've talked privately, that somehow they want to accept you as American before they will accept you as Mexican. And if the other way around it just doesn't work. Why doesn't the Chicano fit into the American dream? I mean, let's look at it through the Anglo's eyes for a moment.
Well, I think there's no question we are different, our language, our customs, but I think basically the difference is a matter of values. I think that the dominant culture has a set of values that for a long time, and even today, we have a hard time accepting. And as we move and as we behave, we're seen as being different. So I think, as I said before, we tried to be like the Anglo for a long time, but we were not accepted. I personally don't feel it's a negative thing to be in a state of limbo. I think it's a very creative time that we're in right now, because we can see with two perspectives. I know for myself, I can go quote the Anglo trip or the Chicano trip, and it gives you a much broader perspective. It's a very exciting thing. I think what is very important is how you view it. Some people call it cultural schizophrenia, like you're supposed to be split up. I don't feel split up. I feel like I have a very good perspective.
So in bridging this gap, let's say between the Chicano and Mexicano, and then the Chicano and the Anglo, because obviously it's like a taffy pull, they're pulling from both sides. Do you feel it is possible for a Chicano to lean towards the Anglo-American way of life and still hold on to what he feels is important to him, his culture and his language?
I think that is exactly what is happening. In other words, as the longer you stay here, the more acculturated you become, the stronger that trait has to be that you keep. Those that are good things will be kept. Those that are not are going to face that test and will fall apart and fall aside. And so that what you will get is like a pluralism where only the strongest things remain. And I've seen that happen already. We've seen it happen in the last 50 years.
You mentioned that it is possible then for Chicano to exist very easily in an anglicized world. And I question, we had mentioned earlier about the political representation, why we need Chicano. Going back to that for just a second, if obviously statistics show there has been a decrease in Chicanos in political office. Where do you think we made that turnabout going the other way instead of progressing forward?
I think we just stopped for a little while. I think the lack of political representation is just a lull right now, because people are reassessing what it is they want out of a politician. In the beginning, people said, just get anybody up there, but I think they would begin to look for quality too, so that you get a representation, a representative of yourself that can really articulate your position and still be a very strong person. And I think we're in the middle of a reassessment period. I think, as I understand it, there's going to be a renacimiento, a renaissance, and it's going to be much more effective. And I think we're just sort of in a lull right now.
Let's take a look at the situation of the Chicano or Mexicano political representative. And let's take an example of Jess Perez, who's the mayor of Orange. He has an 80% population of Anglos, 20% Chicano. Now, do you feel being in that type of situation, he can honestly represent and meet the needs of the Chicano in the barrio?
Sure. I think that it goes beyond that. I think the situation is saying is that a Chicano can represent everyone. And I don't see why that shouldn't happen. So that I think it's something that we can learn from, that he can satisfy the Chicano, but people have this weird notion that we cannot be in government positions over Anglo people. I think that's the key issue there.
But you are a believer in that a Chicano in political office can serve both people, and let's say a middle class or upper middle class Anglo and then a very lower class Chicano at the same time?
Sure, that's what we have to do to survive. If you can't do that, then you become too selective. And I don't think that kind of specialization will survive in America.
We'll put out 80% of the effort if we can get 20% effort back to actually draw people out to see if they won't come out of the barrio, say this protectiveness that they feel. That's a state of mind. It's not just the poverty pockets that we have here as defined by the county, which have grown up, from the various laboring forces that had low-cost housing.
We have 99 sworn personnel, and we have about 10 black, Chicano, Japanese, Portuguese, and our program just didn't start yesterday either, Mayor. We have men who have minority ancestry that have been with us for 20 years, so it's not just all new.
Well, as you know, Mayor, the school district board and the councilman of the city of Orange long ago set up a program for joint construction of swimming pools, and they're in operation now, and they've been highly successful for about a year. Another program we're jointly involved in is the utilization of school sites for community and neighborhood parks. And the city has already implemented some plan on these, and the school board intends that all of the school sites ultimately shall become a city park.
We asked Mayor Perez if there was a successful formula in politics for the Chicano.
I think so. It's worked for me, and that is the formula of coalition politics. Better explained, take my situation in the city of Orange with only 8% Spanish surname and yet elected twice by overwhelming margins. So I think that I am trying to represent in Orange all of the people, knowing full well that the Chicanos or Mexican Americans look to me for leadership.
He's been doing pretty good as far as I'm concerned, but then again, there's, different people have different opinions about him. Personally, he's a very nice person. He tries to understand Chicanos. He tries to get different viewpoints, and he tries to tell all these other white people, these politicians, well, listen,
Good morning, Floyd. ¿Cómo estás?
How are you?
¿Te traen trabajando?
Sí, pintando poquito.
Do you feel that the community really feels that government is trying to help? Do they still distrust government? What is their opinion? You talk to them quite a bit, more than I do. What is their opinion about government in general?
As far as the people, I believe that they're still kind of skeptical. But the majority, I'm speaking about the majority, feel that they are being helped, yes.
Yes, now we're talking of the curbs, gutters, and sidewalks,
yes.
Which of course the city and the property owners worked on in the city of Orange, here in El Medina. And as you know, we're working with the county, with Supervisor Clark now to
yes.
have the same improvements on the north side in the county area. And do you feel that the people are supporting that? Are they solidly behind it? How do you feel about it?
I believe they are solidly behind, because I have been attending the meetings. Of course, there's, like I say, one person can disrupt some things that are being discussed about and arranging, but the majority is in favor. I believe the majority is in favor.
Well, I'd like to ask you guys what you think is needed in the community. I know we've talked about the hassles with the PD and all that. What is needed?
We need a park. The park. We need a park, because I was gone for 5 months, and we were getting a park, and when I come back, there wasn't shit here.
They took away the school, that's all. No park.
They took a school away. Our little kids, our brothers have to go ship to another school. Is that right for little kids to get shipped other side of town when we got a school right here?
They say they want us off the streets, you know? Where are we
supposed to go?
Stay
we
home?
Can't go nowhere.
They said they promised us a park. Where's the park?
We've been waiting for...
We've been waiting for 2 years for a park.
Get everything, man.
Oh, every time we go down there, sure, you're going to get your park next month, you know, in January, and then it's February, then it's March.
No, but you know
we
the
never
story
get
on
it.
that, like I told you, the community has to put it together. They have to say, all of us want the park. We're getting 50% of the people saying, we don't want it because it's going to bring a lot more, you know, F-troopers in, and then the other half, like you guys are saying, we need it real bad because you want to get off the streets. So how do we put it together? That's my
Give
question.
us a park and a handball court and a couple of barbecue pits. We can have picnics and stuff. You know, what are we supposed to do, stand here all the time? And so the blocker comes by and they look at us and they just turn
right
around.
there, man. There's our park right there.
You call that a park?
A little parking lot, man. Not even a parking lot.
All it is a lot with a couple of picnic benches on it.
And that's all. And
you know, what's Modena got?
And they tell
a
us
big
not to get in
baseball
trouble,
diamond?
man. They tell us that we're a bunch of hoodlums. Shit, we don't got nothing, that's why.
Hey, how long we've had that park over there, Van? Long enough, huh?
You mean that corner piece of property?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, you call it a corner piece of property. It's supposed to be Cruz Park.
Yeah, but that doesn't belong to the city, you know that.
I know, it belongs to the community.
What about our park at the school that we're supposed to
That's
get?
what we're
was,
hassling, Nate.
That was
No,
2
man.
years ago, wasn't it?
And they took our school.
All
and
they
didn't
kept
give a
telling
shit,
us was, yeah, you know, it's coming, man, it's coming. Yeah, you'll get it. Yeah,
Come
it went through and you'll get it. Nothing came through, man. Nothing has.
Al, Mr. Could I ask you a question? Okay, what do you see as the answer to putting this whole thing together? I mean, you know, so the community is working together so we're not hassling, you know, one half against the other half.
Yeah, well, we want the city to do something, you know. We can't do nothing. We don't got no money.
We're going to circulate a petition so that, you know, the people in City Council will know that the majority of the people do want the park. The problem was that there was confusion as to what we were going to have, the park or the school, and it was never that issue at all.
Never. All right, F-Troop. F-Troop rifa.
So when the people were asked...
Esther, ¿qué te parece? Estamos avanzando con los niños, ¿cómo ves?
Sí, me parece que sí, hemos hecho un progreso muy grande, siendo que ya tiene 7 años este programa.
¿Y los papás qué opinan? ¿Están de acuerdo con el programa? ¿Lo apoyan?
Sí, yo he ido alrededor a la comunidad y he preguntado si creen que hemos hecho algo bueno con este programa y parece que sí. Ya hay niños ahorita tenemos niños en 3er lugar en la escuela de elementary y parece que sí.
Electra, as far as the kids are concerned that have already gone from Head Start to the public school system, do we see that the Head Start program has really helped them in getting a Head Start and coming up to par?
Yes, because the children, particularly the children that are handicapped, we take children that are physically handicapped and we do help them, you know, to be able to function better within a classroom situation. And also the children that don't speak English, that when they get into the public school systems, which are not truly bilingual yet, and we hope someday they will be, that these children have an opportunity to understand English, and so that does definitely give them a head start.
¿Cómo te gusta el programa? ¿Cómo te llamas? Gabriel. ¿Gabriel qué? Gabriel Silva. ¿Te gusta el programa? ¿Eh? ¿Y te gustan los juegos aquí? ¿Y de qué parte eres tú?
De allá? I think he's got a lot of the older people that like him, you know, as far as what he's trying to do. But the young kids don't understand him or something. You know, they really think he's kissing the politicians, you know, behind. And it's very hard because I try to talk to them and tell them, you know, he's only doing what he has to do. He has a job. You know, if you're being paid to do something, represent so many people, you can't be running back over here, you know, touching base and working out of your base. You got to work from the center of the city, you know, and they understand it, but they want more, you know. They really want to use them as far as his office to get more things. I don't blame him, because it's the first time it's ever happened, you know, that we've had somebody with that much power.
I determined for myself a long time ago that I could not be all things to all people. I do play different roles. I can work with my Chicano brothers, Mexican-American families in the barrio to encourage them to become part of the system, while at the same time doing my utmost to bring into play the support that I need politically to bring in programs that are beneficial to the low-income groups. I think what we must do, those of us who are of Latin extraction, and I'm broadening the political group now, is to develop our own goals and priorities in the state of California. 1 out of 5 in California is now Spanish surname. We have to recognize that fact. We have to be in a position to want to work to better our own situations. We cannot expect other people to always be doing it for us. In that sense, we can identify the needs and develop the priorities, the solutions, and work with the broader community and have us involved in the decision making. I would rather have a person involved with me disagreeing rather than on the outside shouting, looking in, and criticizing. Make them part of the decision-making process and obligate them to live by that decision. I try to show by example that if you do get involved, you can bring about change. If you're constantly criticizing without offering solutions, then no solution comes about. Additionally, I think my community organization activities have helped immensely. While at the same time, I think the credibility has remained intact with the majority Anglo community.
Well, Jess Pittis is in office because of his ability to be able to encourage the Anglo voter to support him.
And that's the key.
And that is the key. The key is not isolating ourselves to depend on one ethnic group for the election one into office, but the ability to convince all Americans that they should vote for you because you are the best qualified person for the position.
In order for the Chicano to progress in the perspective of what is known as equality, we must have political representation among those politicians who claim they are the people's representatives. It is important that all Chicanos pursue the key of success by demanding equal representation. We cannot sit back and cop out to such statements as, "We've come a long way." The statement should be, "We are long overdue." We should not alienate ourselves from the Anglo-American, but make him aware of the Chicano's ability to succeed. There is no denying that America is also the land of the Chicano. Our children will be born here, they will live here, and they will die here. And we should pray for the day that all Chicano children will not only stand proud and yell, "Viva Mexico," but they should stand and shout, "Viva America."
Up to California, from Mexico you come, to the Sacramento Valley, to toil in the sun. Your wife and 7 children, they're working everyone. And what will you be giving to your brown-eyed children of the sun?